how do you build a collection of more than 10 million sports cards and keep it all organized so you know what you have? This past Sunday on the Sports Card Investor channel, we did a tour of Got Baseball Cards, Joe Davis's card shop here just outside of Atlanta, and we saw the massive collection that he has in his shop of over 10 million cards. Well, today we're going to find out from Joe himself how he built it. What is that like to build such an incredible collection? We're back here at Got Baseball Cards, and we're going to bring Joe on the show now. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. Arena Club is an innovative platform featuring grading and authentication, vaulting, and digital pack openings. Be sure to check out the amazing items up for auction right now at Arena Club. From rare cards to top-tier collectibles, there's something for you at Arena Club. Download the Arena Club app today by searching Arena Club in the App Store on your phone, and then use promo code SCI for 10% off your first purchase of cards at Arena Club. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you on this again. And we just did a fun day together where we toured your whole card shop. The audience got to see it this past Sunday on the Sports Card Investor channel. And, you know, your retail store here, it's awesome. You redid this recently and expanded it, which was really cool to see. Yes. But I think the downstairs where you store the 10 million plus cards, that's a little behind the scenes. That's not something that people necessarily get to see when they just walk into your shop here. That to me was really incredible to see, because just the scope of having more than 10 million cards and having them also nicely organized was wild for me to see. And I know this has been really a lifetime project for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Building all this up.
Yeah.
How did that start? What was the beginning of amassing such a massive card collection?
Well, I'll go all the way to the very beginning. I started collecting in 1976 and collected periodically all the way up through my teenage years. 1987, first year of college for me, I started going to card shows regularly. By 1988, I was not only setting up at shows, but I was hosting shows in college, in my college town of Rome, Georgia. And the more shows I did, the more opportunities I got to buy. And the more opportunities, I was known as the card vendor in my dorm. You know, people would come to me, and I had boxes stacked under my bed, and I'd pull them out, and hey, I want to buy a pack today, okay. And so, little by little, throughout college, I was buying, selling. My dream had always been to open a card store. From the time I was probably 12, 13 years old, I wanted to open a card store, and so 1991, I got the opportunity to open one with my college friend, Geoff Porter, who we had done shows together in college. And then we opened a little tiny 500-foot spot in Avondale Estates, Georgia. And we didn't have 10 million plus cards then. We had a few, maybe a couple 100,000. But then little by little over the years, I say, we've built it one card at a time, one collection at a time. And I developed an approach many, many years ago where we would get offered collections because of what we would pay. And a lot of times we would say, wow, you paid really strong on that. And I would say, no, I paid really strong on the parts I wanted. But then there was a lot of other stuff in it that maybe didn't have a lot of liquid value or maybe no liquid value at that time. But I was building and building and building. And so I would buy a lot of collections where I'm like, well, this is $2,000. I can sell the best stuff and get my money back. And there's not a lot else that I'm going to make off of it, but I'm going to accumulate a lot more cards. And so time after time, I would buy collections, sometimes on small margins, sometimes on negative margins, but I still accumulated. And so you do that for 34 years now. You build up quite a number of cards. And then back in around 2001, we started changing our focus to systematically organizing singles by year, sport, so forth. So basically what you saw downstairs, which is inventory that resides on our eBay storefront, that's basically been about the last 24 years. We've been organizing cards that way, strategically by sport, by year, by product, and then numerically, so that we can list those and not only list them, but quickly find them when they sell.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I'm curious. So going back to when you opened up your first card shop, you said 1991.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's any cards that you still have downstairs today that might still be from those first few years in the early 90s?
Probably so.
Yeah.
I'm sure I haven't flipped all of them
Right.
at this point. I'm sure there's some.
It's an interesting strategy though, like buying collections and the pricing the collection based on the more notable cards, right? The ones that are probably more the high end, the Hall of Famers or the higher end
liquid.
cards, right?
Yeah.
And then getting all the rest of it with your buy, not placing a lot of value on the rest of it, but over time, the rest of it allows you, as you said, keep building, and build up this, incredible amount of cards that over time you can find ways to sell them off and monetize them.
Right. I'll never forget one collection many years ago I was buying, and there were basically 2 rooms full of inventory. One was all the money cards, all the good stuff. And the other room, I was like, okay, I've got so much of this type of stuff already. But the deal was, the gentleman said, all right, I'll agree to your price for this room, but you have to take all the rest with you, because he just wanted it out of the way. And it was, 5,000 count box after 5,000 count box of 80s, which now early 80s stuff is great to have. It's not junk commons anymore. But at the time it was. And so we've bought a lot of them that way. I mean, years ago we bought we've had some massive buys over the years, let's just say, like where we had to rent. We had one time I was in South Georgia. There was such a massive find. We had to rent a huge U-Haul truck and actually hire day laborers to help us move it all to bring it up here. That was in, I believe, 2008. So, yeah, there's been a few huge purchases of multiple hundreds of thousands of cards at a time that help to build up the inventory quicker than some smaller collections.
Is it a little bit like treasure hunting when you get a call, and someone says, I got this, Joe, I got this crazy collection. I need to sell this. I need to move this. And you show up and there's zillions of cards, and that's also
it's part of the thrill. Yeah.
It's a thrill. It's also got to be a lot of work though to process this. That was one of the things as we were downstairs and going through all those cards. I started thinking in the back of my mind, man, the effort that must be involved in, once you acquire all the cards, sorting them, organizing them, putting them all. You had all of your cards in order by number, so you could flip through and quickly find a card from, and of course they're all organized by year and by set, and then they're all ordered by number. It's got to be tens of thousands of hours worth of work that's probably gone into that over the course of many years.
And it's certainly not just me. Our team, Ron Lee, who's been with me since 1992, is one of our 2 team members downstairs that manages all of that. And Robert Light's the other one. He's been with me for about 10 years. And so them and many team members over the years have spent countless hours sorting, organizing, labeling, and relabeling and moving it to multiple. You can imagine moving that to this location, how fun that was. So, because it was 2018, we already had most of that at that point. And so, but keeping it organized is the key for sure.
Yeah. This is I think, when a lot of people think about buying and selling sports cards, they think about slabs.
Right.
They think about higher dollar cards. They think about the big hits. And there's, at Cards HQ, admittedly, that's most of our singles business. Like, we don't have what you have. We don't have the million or 10 million card catalog of, we have some value boxes, and then we have our nicer singles, and that's it. Like, we're not the right place for a set collector. But I think your model here is it shows the depth, right? The breadth and the depth that you can go into with cards. And I think it's a little bit more of a grind it out. Like, there's a lot of work in what you've done, but there's also a lot of appeal for the, for set collectors, for people that are trying to build old sets. I mean, they need you. They need what you have here.
Right. And there's very few of us in the country that have this type of selection. I'm not saying there's not other shops with that amount of cards, but to have it all organized, there's probably on one hand how many I could count that can offer that.
Right.
So I think we're probably the only one in the Southeast that has that depth and breadth of selection.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do you think it would be possible today for somebody to try to build a selection for, let's say, a card shop, to try to build a selection like what you have here? Or is this more of like you started during an era where it was more possible, and today it's just like it's just harder to build something like that?
Well, part of it is, just the cost of the landscape. I mean, you think about, the property, the space it takes up. Could you imagine paying rent to store a bunch of dollar cards where you're at in Atlanta? It's just, that's part of it, but it's also the time. It's the, you can go out and acquire bulk quantities of 80s and 90s cards, but you're not going to have them all collated, all organized, and then counted, and which we still have ones that we need to update and things like that. But you're right. Our whole industry has shifted, where the chase is, let me open a $1,200 Prism box. What are my big hits? And then sometimes they pull the big hits. They don't even care about the leftovers. And so, we've had plenty of customers. They'll rip and go, here you go. And some of that was all just handed back to us. And so, of course, many breakers on many channels don't even ship the base cards because they feel like it's too much work for them, and or the buyer maybe doesn't care about them anyway. So, but there is demand for that. Those of us in the industry who sell a lot of affordable singles like that know there is plenty of demand. We get orders for quantities of a single player or quantities from a specific set. And sometimes it's funny, you'll get an order for, 50, 60 commons from an 80s top set. And I'll go, well, they could have bought the whole set for that. But the thing is, all the rest of them are their childhood cards. And it's their collection. This is the cards they pulled out of packs, and now they just want to finish it off. So, and there's something to be said about that. This is their treasured, this is stuff they actually opened as a kid. Now they're just trying to finish it off. So.
Yeah. I got some of that. I could probably build a few 1990 Donruss sets with all the ones that I got still sitting at my house in my attic from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But if I started to do it, I probably would find like, oh, I'm missing this card from, in order to complete out one of the sets or something like that. So
yeah,
that's where you would come.
Or you can go spend $10 and buy the whole set.
Sure. And you know
so
what?
There's two sides to it.
Yes, I probably would take that route myself. But yes, I understand it. Do you think that it's so I feel like people don't set build. People definitely don't build sets today the way that they used to. Right. Set building used to be, even when I was a kid back in the 80s, set building was a much bigger deal.
Oh, yeah.
Feels like it's less of a big deal today. It feels like manufacturers don't play into the set building nearly as much as they used to. First of all, there's so many different brands. So,
right.
But a lot of the brands now with all the different inserts and all the different parallels and all these things, it feels like they're not really oriented around set building as much anymore.
No,
and maybe there's some exceptions. Maybe you could argue Top Series 1 is still a set builder product, or something like that.
Well, we still sell huge quantities of factory sets.
Yeah.
But that's not building them, that's just buying it,
right.
Finished up. But yeah, back in the day, dating myself, in our store we would have 8x10 sheets with little check boxes, 1 through 800. And we'd put our name at the top, and collectors would go home with their sheet and mark it off and bring it in like, hey, can you get me these 12 cards to finish my, 90 top set or whatever it was. And so we don't have those sheets out anymore because there's not nearly as many, doing that. So now that's not true for on our vintage boxes dating back to 1948. We do have set builders working on those still. But the modern, we rarely have collectors come in and say, hey, I'm trying to finish my 24 tops chrome set.
Yeah.
Instead, they come in. I just had a collector bring me multiple 5,000s that he had opened.
Yeah.
And he was like, here's all my leftovers that I didn't grade. What will you give me for everything?
Yeah.
So that's what I see far more often.
Yeah. Yeah. People aren't as interested. They're interested now in chasing the big name players. Maybe they might build a rainbow of different parallels of a particular player or something like that, but they're not as interested in the actual set completion of the ultra modern stuff. Is that a shame? Like, do you feel
I think it's sad.
Yeah.
As a diehard collector myself, I still will sit at home. Just the other night, a product I had opened. I was literally sitting there with my sorting tray, and I was like, I'm going to build a set of this and put it in a notebook because I really like this set. And so as a passionate, lifelong collector, I still appreciate those who come in, and we strive to really help them, because we're like, we get those want lists, and we get that, we have people who want collectors who want every Dodger base card from this year, or every Braves whatever, or every Braves team set, whatever. And so we know there are not nearly as many of those out there anymore, but we strive to take care of them, when they show up and meet those needs.
Yeah, it's part of me feels like it's a little bit of a shame because I remember building, in fact, I just bought off from you a box of 1988 Score baseball, which is still about as cheap today as it was back in 1988.
Yeah.
But I actually attempted to build a complete set of 1988 Score baseball. That was the first set that I ever tried to build. And I opened up a lot of 1988 Score baseball when I was a kid. It probably because it was the cheapest.
And it had more cards per pack than the other brands.
So it was the one that I could afford and get the most cards of. So that was the one I started to build a set of. I also liked the fact it was colorful. That was the one that had the different border colors, and so that kind of drew me to it as a kid, more so than 88 Tops or something like that. But back then there were no parallels. There were no inserts. There were
no autos, no jerseys.
No autos, no serial numbered cards. And so the only thing to do was to build a set. That was the logical thing to do. That's what everyone's mind went to.
Right.
Was let's build. Of course, people still wanted to get whatever the big card was of the year, the Bo Jackson or the Ken Griffey Jr. People were still looking for that card, but there weren't any parallels or variations of it. So it was just so people their mindset went to sets. I feel like today the mindset goes to give me the hits, give me the parallels, give me that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm chasing that one of one.
Right.
Or whatever.
And even if you build a set of the base cards, there's so many parallels now. It almost feels a little anticlimactic a little bit in some ways.
Well, when we break products to put the singles online, sometimes it's frustrating. We're we just want a bunch of base cards so we can actually build the set, get them scanned, list the singles. And one of my team members was like, "Oh, half the cards in here are parallels, so it's going to take me forever to actually build a base set." And so sometimes there's maybe overproduction of all the parallels. They get in the way for set builders because you got to buy that many more boxes to actually build a base set.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
It's almost gone too far the other direction in some products.
It's interesting. Some of the cooler... Now, what I have seen recently is I have seen some people building sets of a particular parallel or a particular insert. One of my big purchases in 2024 was I bought a complete set of 2014 Kaboom basketball. So it's all the Kabooms.
Wow.
50 Kabooms in the 2014. So second year of Kaboom cards.
That's the old cartoon designs.
It was still one of the cartoon designs. Right. Yeah. And it was all 50 of the Kabooms from that year. And so that to me, so that's a set, but it's an insert set. It's a different type of set, right? There's a collector here in Atlanta who has come to some of our Cards HQ trade nights who built out, and he just recently completed it. He was very proud of completing it. And rightfully so. 2003 Topps Chrome basketball, he built out the complete set of all of the black refractors.
Wow.
So those are all numbered to 500.
Yeah.
Is obviously the LeBron's very valuable.
Yeah.
And then some of the others like the Kobe, are and then some of the other rookies like Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, those are valuable as well. But he built out the complete set, which actually takes a little bit of work because some of the commons, in some cases, can be harder to find than the stars. There's a lot of LeBrons that circulate around because they're worth a lot of money, so people sell them. But there's not necessarily a lot of, whoever the backup point guard for the Grizzlies was back in 2003, right?
Because the owner probably doesn't even take the time to list it because they're like, this isn't worth much. I'm not going to take the time to put it on.
Yeah.
So, that's true with a lot of those older parallel sets. You get down to the nitty gritty, and it's the commons that you can't find to finish them.
Yeah,
Common players, I should say.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Set building is, I hope it does make a little bit of a comeback in the future, but I don't know if it's ever gonna be like how it used to be. But it is a little bit of a lost
Probably
art.
not, but that's a good phrase for it.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, Heritage, I do still have a number of collectors each year that want to build the Heritage set, but it is based upon the vintage designs, and that's part of the appeal for it. But that set, probably more than any other that we have set builders. Of course, there's all the short prints every year to chase, so that's a lot of work. But we do still see that. That is definitely a product where set builders still chase it.
How does so today with your card shop, you've got obviously a large, massive singles, and I know you've got, a lot of them listed on eBay, not all of them anymore, but you've got a number of them listed on eBay. You go to card shows and you sometimes bring those boxes to card shows. You were telling me that like the
vintage box,
vintage boxes are very popular at card shows. Then you still have a lot of singles around your shop that are graded or raw higher end singles around your shop. You've got a lot of wax. You obviously have a lot of services like grading and everything like that.
Yeah.
Where do you see like kind of the interest levels today in these various things, and how has that changed over time for you?
Of course, we've been offering the grading since 1998, and it has grown dramatically over the years. We see ourselves more as a service provider to the industry than anything else. Yes, we have a great card shop. There are a lot of great Metro Atlanta stores now. We used to be the biggest. We're not anymore. That's okay though.
Sorry about that.
But we focus a lot. We keep adding more services. We originally did a lot of the grading, but then our consignment area has probably grown the most because that's another need that we can meet for collectors, where they don't want to have to do the work to list it themselves. And we have a whole program that we call Grade to Consign, where collectors basically they bring in raw cards. They end up with money on the tail end of the process. We go through everything, pick out what needs to get graded. When it comes back from grading, then we list the items for them on eBay, and they end up with a check on the tail end. So that's grown dramatic. We had to hire another consignment manager. So we have multiple guys just focused on working with clients on their collections. And we take in, whether it might be quantities of wax cases, it might be memorabilia, it might be autographs, or it might be vintage or modern to get graded. So, and it's a lot of fun for us because I get to see a lot of that stuff as it comes through, and I meet with clients. We have a gentleman who's a retired military, disabled, and Wednesday I have an appointment with him, and his caregiver's coming in with him to bring his collection in to sell or consigned, however he can maximize the most. So it's rewarding to us to be able to help people in those kind of situations, and we help them get the most out of their collection, whether it's through grading or then consigning. So that's always rewarding for us.
Yeah.
To help meet the needs of collectors in the community.
That's neat. Yeah, and it's neat that you do that through so many different facets of your business.
Right.
It's not just one thing. It's not just you're selling wax or you're selling all of these cards from the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's a lot of different aspects of what you do to help, as you said, serve the hobby, which is really, really neat. And I'll mention to the audience out there that if you are interested in grading your cards, we've talked about it on the show before. Joe Davis, his bulk submission program, he can grade your cards with PSA, SGC. He can help with CGC, BGS, and he can save you money in many cases, help pre-screen your cards, sometimes get better turnaround times. There's a lot of greatness to what he does. If you go to sportscardinvestor.com and you click grading in the main menu bar, you can find out all about it. So again, sportscardinvestor.com, click grading. It's a good way to get your cards graded. How do you, Joe, as you're kind of looking out towards the future here, we're looking at the rest of 2025. We're still early in the year. We're looking at future years and, the landscape shifting some. Do you anticipate your business changing a lot over the next few years, or do you think it's still the bread and butter of provide services to the hobby, and no matter what the manufacturers are doing at any given time, you're going to continue to kind of carve your own niche and do your own thing?
Yeah, I mean, collectors, individuals in the hobby, always there's those who always have needs that need to be met. There's always those who don't have the time. They may have the resources to spend the money on the cards, but they don't have the resources or time to get the cards resold. They don't have the time to focus on what should be graded. I think there's always going to be that need. There's always a need in our industry for expertise like our team can provide to help collectors, to educate collectors, to help them maximize their collection. So no matter who is printing cards, no matter where those cards are being sold at other competing retailers, there's always going to be that need. We provide expertise that you don't get at GameStop, or you don't get at Walmart, or you don't get at Target, or whatever, these other stores that they can sell product, but they don't have decades and decades of experience that our team has. So that's not going to change. As to which product lines we sell, that could change. Of course, it depends on the manufacturers, what they're printing. We're probably going to change a little bit of our buying habits this year because, as we've shared, neither of our companies has been able to buy enough volume that we want to be able to, because it's really easy to resell stuff right now. And sometimes you don't have to put it out in your store. Sometimes you don't have to put it on eBay or your website. You can make 1 or 2 phone calls and move massive amounts of graded cards. There's so many buyers buying cards at the top of the market. I mean, I have some vendors who say, "Oh yeah, I'll pay 100% on certain things," and so it's like, well, that's all I can retail it for. They're like, "Yeah, that's fine, I'll take it," and so that's an area we've got to work on. We need to be more effective buying and find other avenues where we can acquire collections and things, and maybe travel more to be able to do that. But we're going to be expanding our hours here at our retail store. We're going to be trying to do more events, more trade nights, more things for collectors in the community. And last year, I honestly traveled more than I ever had to shows, but it kind of hurt the flip side of it because it took my mind off of some things here. It took my focus off of it. So I'll still be doing all the major, the national, and we're going to be in Culture Collision and major shows in the Southeast, but not going to be doing as many like coast to coast type trips.
Yeah.
But look forward to what we're going to be able to do to grow the hobby in our community and continue to serve the thousands of clients we already have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fascinating few years ahead for sure. Looking forward to it. For anybody watching who isn't familiar with Got Baseball Cards, might want to check out your shop or maybe check you out online. How can they find you?
Yeah, well, if they are in the metro Atlanta area, we're in Loganville, Georgia, open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. If they want to shop with us online or get more details about grading, they can go to the website, gotbaseballcards.com. But also pretty much anywhere on the web. If they want to follow us on Whatnot, we're on there 5 to 6 days a week under Got Baseball Cards on Whatnot. If they want to follow us on any social media on YouTube or Instagram, we're also under Got Baseball Cards there. So pretty much you type in Got Baseball Cards, you will find us in a lot of places.
There you go. Joe Davis, Got Baseball Cards. And once again, sportscardinvestor.com, grading in the main menu bar has got a lot of that great information as well.
Yep.
Really appreciate you coming on, Joe. And this was a fun episode to do. The tour that we did on the Sports Card Investor channel was a lot of fun. And
appreciate you coming out.
Look forward to visiting you again, hopefully sometime soon, and seeing your store continue to grow and evolve as time goes on here.
All right, sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks so much, Geoff.
Very much. And thank you guys for watching. And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget that you can subscribe to the full-length Geoff Wilson Show episodes on YouTube under the Geoff Wilson Show channel on YouTube, but also on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to search for The Geoff Wilson Show everywhere so you can listen to it on the go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon with our next one. Take care.